Welcome back to No Code Devs. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to import data into Wix Studio using Zapier Webhooks. This is a low-code solution, but it's totally beginner-friendly. In a matter of about 10 minutes, you'll be able to connect any of the thousands of Zapier apps and import that data right into Wix Studio. This could be a Google Sheet, a form, or any other app that you can think of. It only takes a few lines of code, and you have to map the data in Zapier, but it's easy to follow along and get started. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, comment with any questions, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future videos like this one. Okay, let's go ahead and dive in and show you how this works. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with the tutorial. Just as a refresher here, we're going to show you how to import items into your Wix Studio CMS with Zapier from any app that connects to Zapier. We're going to use a form today in the example, but this could be a Google Sheet, this could be Airtable, or any other app that connects with Zapier. So we're logged into our Wix Studio account, and we have a bunch of different collections here which are already in use, but I'm going to create a new collection today for the sake of example. So all we have to do is head up to this blue button that's called Create Collection. And once we hit that, we'll be given two options. We can create a collection with AI, or we can start from scratch. Let's just go ahead and start from scratch here because we're just going to create a basic collection. So we need to name our collection. We'll just call this one Import. You have two options, multiple items, which is the default and the usual setup for a collection. You normally have multiple items in your database, or you can do a single item. We're going to stick with multiple items and click Create. Okay, so this has created a collection for us. It's super basic. There's only one field in the collection, which is called title. You can add multiple fields. Just keep in mind, as you add more fields, if you want to map the data, you'll just repeat the steps in this process for these additional fields. Some things we need to do before we get started is we need to go up to this button called More Actions, and we need to go to Collection Settings. So there's a couple things here that we need to note. The collection ID, which is super important, it's just called Import, which is the name of our collection. But you might want to double check this just to make sure that the collection ID does match what you called it. If you already had an existing collection with the same name, perhaps, it might give it a different ID. So you want to make sure you're aware of your collection ID, which in this case is called Import. Another thing that's important is the permissions and privacy. So if we head over to this tab, we want to make sure that the permissions are public for adding content, so we're able to add content through the API. So we're going to choose public, and then we're going to go down to these drop downs here for who can add content. We're going to hit anyone. Who can delete content. Let's just leave that as a min, and who can update content. We can leave this as a min too, because essentially we only want the API to be able to add content for this example. So we'll leave this on anyone, and we'll go ahead and click save. Once we've done that, we're going to go back over to the home page of our site. We're actually going to click edit site, and we're going to want to publish this so that the collection that we just created is public and available through the API. This is going to take a moment just to load up because we're opening the editor. But once it does, we'll go ahead and publish it, and then we'll move on to the next step here. Okay, so let's go ahead and publish our site. Okay, perfect. So now that collection is now public and published, we need to move on to the next step. Okay, so what we need to do is if you're in your editor, you head over to these little curly brackets here, which is the public and backend code. Once you've selected that, you're going to want to choose this item here, which is http functions.js. Let's go ahead and open that up. There's going to be a bunch of information in here. I've already done this for a couple different collections on my site, so I have the code ready. I will make this a code available in the show notes. But what you're going to want to do is we're going to copy this code, and we are going to paste it down at the bottom of our code editor here for our new function. I was not in editing mode. Let's go ahead and hit edit code. Now that we're in the editor, I can just copy this and then paste it below. Okay, so we only have to change a few things here. What we need to do is name our function first. I typically name my function the same name as the collection. So we need to have this first line changed, export function to post, and we'll call this if you remember, we called the collection import. Let's go back to our CMS. Import. So we called the collection import. And if we just double check here, We can check the collection settings and the collection ID is import. So if we head back over here, we'll just call this function my import. You can actually call this whatever you would like. It really doesn't matter, but I think for the sake of consistency, it's good to have the same name as your collection ID. The other thing that we need to change here is where it says return Wix data insert, and this says test. We actually need to change this to be the same name as our collection. It has to match exactly. So if we come back here, we can see the collection ID is import, all lowercase. We made this import, all lowercase. Okay, so now that we have this updated, our function is complete. It was super simple. We can go ahead and publish again. Now that this is published, we can head over here to Zapier, where we have a simple workflow set up. In this case, we are going to pull in data from a form submission. But as I said earlier, this could be anything. This could be like a Google Sheet. It could be an Airtable. It could be a form. It could be a contact us form on their website. It could be a way for users to add data. There are a lot of things that you could do here. So what we need to do is set up our trigger. So this again could be anything that you want. And then we need to add a second step, which is post in webhooks by Zapier. Once you add this, there's going to be some fields that you have to fill out. The first thing is we want to make sure we choose Webhooks by Zapier, and the event we want to choose is post because we're creating an item in our database. We don't want to get items, we want to post items. So we're going to go ahead and choose post. For the URL, it's pretty simple. Whatever your site is, you're going to want to have your HTTPS, your site name, a / functions, which will always be the same. And then at the end of this, you're going to just want to put in your function name that we created here. So in this case, it's my import. Remember, your function can be named whatever you would like. It's not dependent on the actual collection. We could call this test2. It doesn't really matter, but for this case, we're going to use my import. So let's just go ahead and choose my import. Now that we've done that, there's a couple other things that we need to select here. The payload type needs to be JSON. We're going to skip this data for right now. Wrap, request, and array, no. Unflatten, yes. And then we need to add a header, which is the content type application JSON. And you can see that here in the headers, in this function, the content type is application JSON. So let's go back here. It's content type application JSON. And then here's where we need to map our data fields. These are essentially just the tables in our collection, or the rows in our or the columns rather, in our collection. So if we come over to our collection here, we can actually see that the only field that we have here is a title field. If we go ahead and click edit, we can see that the field ID is called title. If we were to add another field, we could grab the field ID for that field as well. What we want to do is we want to change this data to title because our field ID is called title. Now, I just have some text in here, but this is the item that you would want to grab from the previous step in your automation. So if you were getting data from a Google Sheet, you would see your Google Sheet data here. Right now, I'm seeing my form data because I have this connected to a form. I can choose from any of the fields that were submitted on this form to map directly into my CMS. So let's just say I want to choose this particular field, the name/agency name, to map into the CMS. I can do that, but I can choose any field. And if I had multiple columns in my database, I could just simply map all of these fields here through Zapier. So let's go ahead and click continue and retest this step. And it looks like it was successful. So let's head back over to our CMS. We can actually go out of here. We can go back to import, and it's showing one item. And the title is Automation Champion, which came through our form. So now when anyone submits our form, automatically this field title will be mapped to the title field in our CMS. If we were to add a second field, say it was text, and we were to call it description, the field ID is simply description. We can click save. If we head back over to Zapier, in our action step, we can just add another row. We can call this description. And then we can map any data that we want to this description. Let's just say we want to map this response ID to description. We can hit continue and retest this. Come back over to our CMS. And now we can see there's a new item with the data that we had in the first step, which is automation champion, plus the description was also matched. So as you can see, as you add columns to your database, you can just simply add them here in the data headers, and the items will map right into your CMS. So this is a very low code way to add items into your Wix Studio CMS using Zapier. Again, you can use any trigger that you want, whether it be forms or sheets or any app that connects with Zapier. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, please be sure to drop them in the comments. Like this video if you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future videos like this one. Thanks so much.